I'm Katie.
I'm Garrett.
And as this comes out, this will come out on June 29th, but starting July 1st, you'll be able to nominate us for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. So in the show notes for this episode, there'll be a link, and of course we'll share it to our Instagram at the bar is ankle high. Just go and nominate us so we can win an award. Because we wanna. And
our self-esteem is entirely dependent on this award.
Yeah, it's weird how much we require outside confirmation that we're the best ever.
Constant positive
that's
feedback
ever been attempted. And so we need it. So we're in the comedy and health categories, of course. So that's in the show notes, and we'll remind you again at the end of the episode. But yeah, starting July 1st and for the whole month of July, you can nominate us for those categories. And then we'll find out if we made it past the nomination round and get to like actually be a part of the award ceremony or whatever the hell in September. So go do it.
It's like when you were telling people to sign up for Patreon and I got real threatening real quick.
Yeah.
Just sign up, guys.
Or else.
A very mild suggestion.
But today, for the last episode that we're releasing during Pride Month, inspired by a post actually that was made by the neurodivergent nurse who you all heard on our feed a couple weeks ago, we are talking with Sarah Spellman, they, one of our listeners and Patreon subscribers. But we are talking about the queer experience within neurodivergent spaces, or however else you want to describe that. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this and also coming up with the idea.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. Like, it's funny because like my fiance had like made a joke of like, oh, like you should ask them to like be a guest like host on the show. And I was like, no way. Like there's, and then I said that as a joke. And then they're like, oh, they were serious. Okay, we're going to do this. Let's do this.
And you're like,
yeah, that was also, the whole interaction was a very ADHD interaction because I was like, yeah, you can do that. And then you were like, ooh, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. Were you serious? Because I don't know anymore.
And Katie and I were both like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, oh man, it was a joke. I didn't get it.
No, definitely glad to be here and doing this episode for sure. And I mean, like, what a time in present day America to be talking about neurodivergence and the queer community all in one go. So hopefully we can stir up some angry comment threads and, you know, people can be upset that these, some of the stuff in my notes are definitely interesting statistics that I came across.
Can being gay be cured with essential oils, though?
Ooh, great question. Probably not.
Oh, okay.
I hear you're not supposed to just ingest them, though. I feel like I heard that on some podcasts that I follow.
That sounds
you
like
can't
fake
just
news.
You can't just like eat essential oils or like mix it in with your Starbucks drinks.
I can imagine how bad it would taste.
It'd be so. I feel like it's got to taste like the inside of an old sneaker.
Or like probably like licking the inside of a done candle, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like
eating a candle warmer.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
Like, even if they told me like, hey, this would cure all of these woes that you have, I still wouldn't do it because I just wouldn't be able to like get it down.
Yeah, my woes are my friends.
What am I going to do with all of these woes?
What am I just supposed to like do chores now?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be stress-free.
Yeah.
That's unlikely.
I think my whole personality is my anxiety. What am I supposed to do? Just eat this candle warmer and then find a new personality? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a Kit Kat. You just break off those squares and
my God, it would taste so bad.
Yeah.
Just no. Like that's just
and then a flavored crayon.
Yeah. No, or like, my tongue would end up with like a waxy film.
Nope. Don't like that.
Sorry.
Don't
Can
like
you tell
that.
We all have sensory issues. We're just like, No.
What could I drink to get that flavor out of my mouth?
Don't like that.
Anything, as long as it's not hot, because then it's just gonna melt the wax even more. So,
Yeah. I can't tell if that would help or be worse.
yeah.
So, why are you talking to us about queerness with ADHD, Sarah? I mean, I know I said your pronouns are she, they, but
Yeah, so I probably started to come out to a lot of my friends maybe like a decade ago, which is like crazy to think about. I was still an undergrad, but I also feel like I've always been like, after, especially after reading that post from the neurodivergent nurse, like I feel like I never really not only like connected the two of just like, oh, I wonder if like my neurodivergence like ties into not only just like sexual orientation, but also like gender identity as a whole, but also just like the, like the dual stigma. I was like, wow, that hits way too close to home because I feel like I've always been way more willing and capable and like open about my ADHD and like things like that. But when it comes to like coming out constantly to like new people, new coworkers, that whole concept, like I feel like there's definitely like a huge difference of being like, hey, I have ADHD and now I work here versus like, hey, I'm your new queer employee. Sorry, my cat just woke up. Let's see. No, he just needed to adjust. He's fine.
okay.
Um, And so, like, then the more I talk to like a lot of my friends that are both neurodivergent and queer, they basically agreed like there is this like dual stigma, the constant having to deal with just like hostile environments and or that just work and life is just more challenging in general. So I definitely wanted to be able to spread the knowledge and help bring some of these issues to light of other people that might not know somebody who experienced these things and or uh, if them themselves have been like questioning their identity and stuff like that. So definitely happy to be here.
So two questions. When were you diagnosed with ADHD?
Ooh, loaded question. So
Okay.
I it's like that has like a
Cool.
two-part answer. So I got when I was a freshman in high school, I don't know how in depth some of this testing was. I feel like I don't really remember it. I got diagnosed in high school with mild to moderate ADHD. Never really sought out any type of real therapy. Didn't choose to go on medication because I was a varsity athlete and I saw that True Life, I'm addicted to Adderall episode, and I was like,
Man.
oh, can't do it.
True Life had such a grip.
Such a grip.
That would be a good one to rewatch is True Life.
Oh, yeah.
I bet that is like a wild look at the zeitgeist in the early aughts.
Yeah.
I feel like I did try to rewatch some of them, and then they're just too cringy that I just had to turn it off. I couldn't do it. Some things don't need to be relived. Like it's not for the nostalgia at that point.
That's like the original Trading Spaces. Like I'd want to crawl right out of my skin. I absolutely loved it when I was younger, but
yeah.
to watch the idea of somebody putting fucking hay on my walls and being like, "Isn't it great?" and like, being like, "Fuck no, it's not. Fix my house."
I thought
like,
the
how
one
do you even
where
get that off?
MTV had that one where Room Raiders, where they would go
yeah.
like into your bedroom and like go through your shit.
Hard pass.
And at the time I was like, oh, I would watch it. And now I'm like, what?
Oh,
I remember them like taking this girl's pants and underwear out and trying to figure out her body size based on her pants and underwear. And I'm like, I want to like have just a full spiral thinking
that should
about
actually, you guys doing a review of like MTV's like hit reality shows of like the 2000s Dysfunction Junction episode. Just gonna throw that out there.
Especially the dating shows that they
the
had.
date like Next.
I was
Room
just
Raiders.
Say,
God.
The one where they got off the bus and was like, ew.
Next.
He'd be like,
Never
what
mind,
up,
Rock
I'm
of
Tom.
Love.
Oh my god, there were so many bad ones. That
And
was
like the
really
weird
bad.
flexes that they do, like
Mm.
as they were coming off the bus and the ridiculous yeah, all of that. All of that's so cringy.
All these men
Uh
just like loaded with like HPV, just
Yes. Yeah, they're
too
the
confident.
HPV
worst.
patient zero. HPV didn't used to cause cancer. It did after those men were allowed to disseminate themselves.
After they became their own super spreaders.
Yes.
Basically.
Between that
Basically.
and like Jersey Shore, they just created a new STI.
Yes. Somehow HPV and herpes created its own superbug with these
Mhm.
guys.
I'd believe that.
You'll never shake it.
I believe it.
You'll literally
Yeah.
never get rid of it.
And that's from the Fox doctor. Garrett agrees. So anyway, back to why we're here. It's the afternoon.
Uh,
Meds have worn off.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Huh.
For me.
Right. So I got, yeah, probably same. I was diagnosed in high school, didn't do anything about it. Lived my best life, so I thought, got into top choice college, did pretty good during undergrad. Definitely looking back, probably not as good as I probably could have done if I was on medication back then. But then I started grad school in 2017. I didn't do my full evaluation until 2019. So I was like halfway done with grad school, working full time. I was also like waitressing part time. Part of the time I
Ugh.
was, yeah, I
I'm
was
exhausted.
getting like going through grad school. And I'm just like, man, I have like no energy for the weekends. Like, I feel like I'm just getting through all the work that I like need to get done, but then like I can't go out on a date on like a Saturday because I'm just so exhausted. And my fiance was just like, well, maybe you should like try to go get like a full evaluation and like see if you can get on medication because like that might be what like, makes that switch over. And it's been great ever since, basically. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, like I'm just like, man, why didn't I do this sooner? But now like the rest of my 20s like went great. I graduated with like honors during grad school. Like I got into an honor society, which like I never thought would be possible for me. Like I told you on Instagram, I was not a pleasure to have in class. Especially because like my last name starts with an S, so throughout all of elementary, middle school, and high school, when you're put in alphabetical order, I'm almost always sitting by the window, like consistently sitting
Yeah,
in the
same.
back by the window. You know it's not a good place for a kid with ADHD? In the back and by the window.
Maybe
Either
that's why I
which
didn't
way.
get it because I was an O, so I was like always smack in the middle.
I was also an S, so I was always like back by the window. And in college, would sit literally like the
Front
front
row.
row in the
Yep.
classroom. Like,
Yep, me too. It was the only way I was able to
Mhm.
like really pull off good grades during undergrad is because I was like, "Ooh, I can sit in the front here." I never had that option before. And so I would literally just sit do that and it was a game changer because I definitely got way better grades in undergrad and grad school than I ever did all throughout like elementary, middle school, and high school.
And
But
being able to
we
control your own schedule too, I think made a huge
that too.
difference.
Yeah, and like being interested in like the classes that I was actually
Mhm.
taking definitely helped too. Weird how those things work out.
It's almost like dopamine is playing a role in brain function.
I
Huh.
think you're full of shit.
I think you
Weird.
made that up. Like some kind of frog doctor would do.
And so now I just try to just like educate myself on like all of the nuance of adult ADHD. And like, can I just say, shout out to the two of you because your podcast, I've listened to so many ADHD podcasts, and like so many times it's focused on like you're a parent with a kid with ADHD or like you're, just other like too scientific or just too not captivating on the subject because so much of this stuff is so dense. And like your podcast has been like a game changer. I send it to so many people
Wow.
I
all
love
the time.
that.
All the
Cool.
time.
Thanks.
Yeah. Because I'm just
That's
like, ooh, this is
awesome.
like a hot take of just like adults with ADHD is like such a hard thing to come by. That's also like funny and entertaining. So like if you don't get it nominated for that award, I'm gonna have to definitely go scream at some people. So don't worry.
Oh, we'll just go into a full tailspin and
Oh
spiral
no,
for
no,
3
no,
days
no.
if we
I'll
aren't
definitely
nominated, so it'll be
I'm
fun.
gonna
Well, if we don't, my partner PK, he just told me that he's surprising me with tickets to a Pink concert for our anniversary, which is like the first week in August. So if we'll find out by then if we're nominated or not, I think. And so then I can just spiral at a Pink concert.
I mean, that seems like a great place to do that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like I saw clips of her like doing a rehearsal of that tour, and I feel like it was really good.
That's pretty much how it came about, because I was like, man, I'd like love to see Pink live, because I saw her when she was at the time at the Pepsi Arena. And she was the opening act for NSYNC. And it was like when her first album had come out, and she did like the whole
I think
soundtrack for Save the Last Dance.
so. I actually think my fiance might have been at that show. I'm not gonna
Probably.
lie. I'm not gonna lie
But
because
it
I
was like,
feel
she was so cool. She was like running down the aisles and singing, and it
it's
was
probably
just
when she actually had
awesome.
her pink hair too.
Yes, she had
Yeah.
like bright, which I thought was the fucking coolest, and I couldn't understand as somebody with dark brown hair why I also couldn't have hot pink hair. And my mom kept trying to
Yeah.
explain to me like it won't show up. Like you'll have to bleach your hair to oblivion and it's not going to look cute. And not to mention like I don't know, even public schools in the late 90s and early 2000s, they were
Oh,
not
your
about
Catholic
having.
school was not gonna allow that
Oh,
either.
that was Garrett.
Yeah,
I was in
no.
public school, but even then they were like, that's too distracting. Like we couldn't wear spaghetti strap tank tops. We couldn't have short shorts unless you were thin. And yeah, so it was just wild. So but I loved it. And so I had said like, man, I'd really love to see, her show. But then I like looked up tickets and I was like, oh, they're just really expensive. And like it's either like at Fenway or at City Field. And so then it would be like an overnight trip. And so it like turns into this whole thing. So I was like, forget it, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you never talk about going to like live music at all or any music really.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And
You're not a concert person.
no. And so he was like, for you to mention that you wanted to go to a concert, like I had to take it seriously. So at least I'll have that to console me if we don't get nominated. But that's so sweet. I'm so glad that you get something
Yeah, thank
from
you so
us.
much. I love
I was
that.
trying to describe yesterday to Jamie, the neurodivergent nurse, why people listen to our podcast, and I didn't have an answer.
Yeah,
It's
we
because
literally were like, we don't know why.
It's because so many things are catered for like the parent-kid relationship, or just like they only talk about kids and or only talk about it in the male experience. I feel like a lot of the stuff that other people have also covered just doesn't even come close to like your hormone episodes or like the PMS episodes, where it's just like, wow, never really thought about how my Adderall doesn't work like days leading up to that. Like, oh, it's not just me. It's not just because I'm lazy or tired. It's, oh, my brain chemistry is just completely off. And now I'm like, wow, I feel a little bit better about myself. Like, wow, I can't just
Right.
beat myself up because I don't want to do work for like 3 days. But it's just like, oh, it's not you. It's your Adderall not working. That's why it doesn't work.
Right. And it can lead to like this imposter syndrome of like, well, if my meds aren't working, then like maybe I'm faking it just to get this stimulant, which like is a ridiculous supposition, but it's so easy to go down that road. And then, you have this potentially, if you have PMDD, 2 to 3 weeks leading up to this, and that you're feeling like, well, shit, like I'm a failure. I can't do it even with this medication. Like, why am I so bad at this? Like, and it's just like, not your fault.
Yeah, there's literally nothing I could have done to prevent this and or really change it. So we're just here for the ride at this point. But
Yeah, basically.
yeah. But to your point of the imposter syndrome, that's actually a lot of the things that came up during my research for this episode. That part of working while queer and also neurodivergent is that you actually have two masks on. So you have the I'm a neurotypical person, I can complete tasks on a reasonable time, but then you also have like, oh, I gotta, act more straight. I gotta act more towards like the heteronormative uh, things that I'm supposed to be expecting to talk about. Like I work for the New York State government, and I worked in a super conservative, like if you look up the 2016 election map, I'm from this like center red mass that is basically in like Queens County. Like it's you can't miss it. It's literally like right there, right in the middle of it.
Big ass
And
pimple. Yeah.
yeah, basically. Hopefully no one back home
No
is going to listen
offense.
to this. Yeah, no offense to them. It's okay. And so, I
All I
mean,
can
it's
picture
I'm
is
not,
like how everybody from Staten Island would give was it Colin Jost from SNL? They would just like trash him all the time. You're gonna get added to like the shit list.
yeah, that's all
Oh
right.
well.
I'm not too worried about it. And so, like, I didn't even feel comfortable, like, talking about being gay or being queer at work things, at like work events. You just had try so hard to just put up those walls and those barriers because it's a protection thing. It's more so of protecting myself and my mental health than it ever was in actually interacting with these people, because I have to interact with them either way, right?
Mhm.
And so like, even I don't think it wasn't until we moved up to the Capitol that I even had a picture of my fiance on my desk, because like you never know what person's just going to walk into my office and just start going off about something ridiculous or something super homophobic. And in those moments, like I've always just had to just like take like a deep breath and just like be like, I'm sorry that you feel like that. Like I don't know what else to tell you. We live in New York. Like if
I
you
hope you
don't
get
like
butthole
I
spiders.
mean that too, but like if you don't like it, like we live in New
Respectfully.
York. Yeah, it's like when they would call and like complain about like the abortion stuff, like of an abortion bill. I'd be like, well, when's the last time you've needed to be in that kind of situation where you've considered getting one? And they'd be like grumpy old men. Oh, I would never. And I'm like,
Well,
okay, so this clearly doesn't have an effect on your life if you're never going to have to deal with it. Like, mind your business. Like what people are doing in their house with their in their doctor's office, nobody's business. Like leave these people alone. And so like you put up all these walls for so long, and like you never know, like when you're switching work environments, you'll never know if like, is this an actual safe place? Is this a safe place where these people are going to be respectful of not just me as a queer person, but also like other queer people. Like I had a former boss told me that um, using they them in a sentence was I think it was he said it was like too nuanced or too new age or some ridiculous boomer language basically, because in an email he would write like not knowing what the person's gender was, he slash she. Dude, just write they. You're using less letters. Like
right.
Right.
and he said something so stupid, and I just was so mad about it. And this was even before like I had come to like terms with my pronouns, and like we'll get into all of that stuff when I dive into my notes. But like it's even just like, okay, it's one thing for you to say this to me in an email, right? But are you talking about like this like when you're out in public where other people can hear you? Because like I'm not
Probably.
going to make a huge deal out of the yeah, right? Like you
Like,
probably are. And so like the more I just sat with this, like just staring at this email, the more I'm just like, we can't do this. It's like we're in the 2020s by now. Like we can't talk like this, like especially like people that work for the New York government, right? We can't just let these things slide. And I said something to my boss and I was like, "Hey, I'm not going to make a big deal and like actually complain, but I'm going to complain to you because like this isn't cool and like you can't talk like this. And like I don't really care if he thinks that it's like a new age thing. I don't want somebody outside of our circle to hear this and then think through all these connections that like that there's a problem here. And like I don't want a problem, but I'll cause one if I need to. Like I can identify as a fucking problem real quick when needed, basically. And so like that was basically resolved, but at the same time like you never know kind of like who you're talking to on the other side of the phone call or like the casework that I would be handling. And like I've been in a lot of different workplace situations where like there are people screaming homophobic and transphobic things. Like I was at a community board meeting back home, and it was a huge meeting. Like I'll send you the YouTube link later because
Oh boy.
just to see
It's
how
on YouTube.
ridiculous. Oh, it's on YouTube. Yeah, I'll send it
When
to
it
you
makes it
guys.
to YouTube, that's
Is
always
it
a
better or worse than the community board meetings in What We Do in the Shadows?
or Parks and Rec.
Oh, no, definitely not as funny as Parks and Recs, but definitely it's I don't know that other thing that you just said, but at the same time,
Oh,
like
you got to watch it. Colin
It's so
Robinson
funny.
gets boners by watching the drama at like the town council meetings in Staten Island, actually.
I'm sure that there are some people that get
Mhm.
boners to these meetings, but
Especially when they're talking about queer rights and somebody's,
oh no, it wasn't even about that. It was the
Oh,
person this person went up to the mic to speak their concerns, and the guy sitting right behind them in the auditorium was standing there sitting there like just screaming these like horrible things. So this person standing up and talking to a room of like at least 100 and something people. Like we're talking about a huge auditorium and just like screaming these horrific things, and I'm sitting across the aisle from them, sitting next to my boss also, and I'm just sitting there and I'm getting more angry and more pissed off. And at some point I was just like I can't do this anymore, and I got up and I went to an NYPD sergeant that I knew that was standing in the back of the room, and I was like, hey, I understand things are getting heated tonight and I'm all for people voicing their concerns, but there's a guy sitting behind the mic that is screaming homophobic and transphobic things. We were in my Catholic high school, which was even funnier. I'm like, we're literally in a Catholic school right now. Can you please just go talk to this guy and just tell him to simmer down because I'm getting so angry. I'm going to have to do something about it. And like we both don't want that. And the sergeant went over and like said something to this guy, and the guy tried to give like the sergeant like back talk, and he's like, let's go buddy, get out of here. And like I'm pretty sure he got kicked out. And like that's what happens, like you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, like.
you
And
just
that,
wanted to quote Taylor Swift.
I mean, that too, you already know, but like that too, you fuck around and you find out sometimes, and it is what it is. And it's like moments like that where like I tell people, I'm like, being an ally is a verb. Like, you have to actively be doing things like that and making sure that queer people can have space in public places in order to be an ally. Like, being an ally is a verb. You have to actively be doing things that help progress our community forward instead of just standing by and just like letting all these things happen, because everyone else around him didn't say anything. Nobody was saying something to him.
That's so crazy.
It's, I mean, again, classic on where I come from, so no real big shocker there. But it's things like that where like I'm literally at work, like I'm on the clock, I'm sitting next to my boss, and I still have to put down part of my armor to just go protect this kid that I didn't even know. I don't know where he's from. I don't know how they're doing now. I hope they're doing okay, but I just felt so bad that like this kid is just trying to read off a statement that he has, and he's just getting yelled horrible things at. Like
And like when are we tolerant of that type of behavior? Like ever
Right.
in other
Yeah. Well,
circumstances.
only
yeah,
only in that certain that,
Yes.
yeah.
realm will people kind of like let it go.
Yeah, and
Um
then so like this basically comes from the fact that like this is why like people don't always come out. You know, like I
Mhm.
dated boys in high school. I personally never understood the concept of coming out because it's not like I came home one day and just announced, "Hey, mom and dad, I have a boyfriend." I wasn't doing that in high school when I was dating boys. And so when I started dating girls exclusively, I feel like I didn't really get it. Like I'm just dating somebody else. Like this is it. And it's basically to reclaim some of that power of just like, hey, I exist. I'm here. This is my life. And if you have a problem with it, like there's the door. Like, I'm no longer, some people would say that it's intolerant of the intolerance, but it's just like I'm
Ugh.
that yeah, like I'm intolerant of people that are straight up assholes. Like, excuse me, sorry, pardon me for like having standards for how people should act, and just again, just mind your business, stay in your own lane, and you know,
Well, it's no different
it,
than, I mean, the concept of political correctness that people will throw around all the time. I'm like,
Mm.
no, it's just not being an asshole. You've just got like a whole group of people that's like, hey, this term really just rubs me the wrong way. Can you just say this instead? No
Right.
one is like stepping on your rights because they're saying, hey, that's just like a shitty thing to say.
Or alternatively, like, please stop looking at me and thinking about what my genitals look like. Like,
Yeah.
that is a weird, like, when you break it down, like, I've had to have that conversation with at least one of my uncles where I'm like, in what world would that, like, because somebody didn't shave their legs, you were like, well, now I need to know what their genitals look like. Like, who, what? That's a weird connection
and
to
like
make,
here's the
pal.
thing, all of
What a
this is
leap.
so yeah, all of
Yeah.
this stuff is so deep rooted though, because if you actually look back into like especially like here in New York, right, I feel like one of the things that I came across during some research that I probably did during undergrad is that New York actually used to have like a clothing law, right? So like you couldn't be wearing I think it was 3 items of the opposite sex gender, or you could be arrested. And that is actually what a lot of the people that were getting arrested when,
Oh,
you
like
know,
Marsha P. Johnson and all that.
yes, during that
Or
time
like
frame and like the
Stonewall. Yep.
civil rights, a lot of those people were getting arrested because of this clothing law that New York had,
Oh.
which like it kind of gives off that same vibe that you're seeing in like all of these other states across America, where it's just like more about how you look and what your appearance is than like anything else. And it's one of those things that these things are so deep rooted into our systems already, and we've been spending decades to unlearn them. Like, no wonder why older people say they don't get it. It's just like you saw these people when you were growing up and you threw them in jail or let them die or both. And
Yeah.
it's just one of these things, you wonder why queer people didn't exist. It's because they died or you murdered them or they didn't feel safe enough to come out to you, so they just left you behind. Like all of these different things, and like that's also part of the problem is that they don't see the connection between this didn't exist back in my day versus like they just were hiding from you.
Yeah,
And
antibiotics also didn't exist at one point. That doesn't mean that
like and
nobody can
here's
take
the other thing.
antibiotics.
And then here's the other thing. Oh, so many kids today have ADHD. Back in my day, these things didn't exist. Yes, they did.
Yeah,
They
you
just
just beat the shit out of those kids. Like, my mother was literally tied to a chair in kindergarten, tied until she wet her pants for the full day because she wouldn't sit still. And like was sleeping through nap time. Like, they'd have nap time at noon or whatever. And then she'd sleep the rest of the school day. And her teacher, like at the end of the year, was like, oh, she's gonna have to repeat the grade because she missed the second half of every school day. And they were like, did you think that maybe you should have told us that she was having sleep problems like in, I don't know, fucking October? Like, like what the fuck? So like it worked out because her birthday's in September. So she was kind of like on that cusp where she could have done either anyway. But it was just one of those things where they were like, why would you have, you tied her to a seat? So first of all, she wet her pants. But like that was the solution to somebody being hyperactive. And so they were like, well, I guess we got to put her in as many sports as possible because this girl just won't stop moving. And she did. She was the only girl playing little league baseball because they didn't have softball teams. And like it was the kind of thing where they were like, whatever we can do to get this girl to move so that she's tired and will, I don't know, not ADHD be awake all night and will actually go to sleep. Like, so she can stay awake during the school day. It's like those types of things. That's what they did back then. Like, and especially if you were a boy, you for sure got hit. You kept getting hit. Like it wasn't an option. There was no alternative treatment unless you were, dealing with some other comorbidity that was extremely severe. And then you end up in Willowbrook. And we know how that worked out.
Yeah, no, it's this like thought that everybody's like way overly sensitive. It's like, no, it's just like giving a shit about what other people are dealing with. That's all. That's all
Yeah.
it
Just
is.
have like a drop of some empathy
Right.
to
I would
just
say that
put
it's
in the
almost
bucket.
it's like less sensitive for me to be like, yeah, go live your life. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
you're not hurting me. So, like, fully don't care.
Yeah.
I will only care if you like flash your genitals to my child. In which case, yes, that is an inappropriate drag
Or ask
reading
my
power.
child about their genitals. Like
Right.
it's the the party of freedom is
Un-
very concerned.
Only their freedom, though. That's the
Right.
thing,
Right.
right?
Freedom
And
for Christians. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like, I
As if like a
mean,
new Duggar documentary didn't just come out. So
yeah,
That was a
like,
good
I
one.
mean, not freedom for conversations you want to have with your doctor or medical decisions you want to make with your family or
no, that would be
whatever
silly.
it is.
That
It's
would be
just
silly.
so
I would like if yeah. And it see, this is the problem. The South generally is problematic start to finish. However, they do have the word y'all. And I really wish we could get that one on board up here because I feel like such a poser when I say it, but like at the
Oh,
same
I give
time,
myself douche chills when I use it, but
yes,
like I
but it's
know it
I
will
don't
so
care
work.
though.
helpful. Like it is the
Y'all means
perfect
all.
word.
So
Yeah.
it is. It is. It definitely is. And I'll use that a lot too. But especially like when I'm in a work meeting and like I'm talking to like I'm walking into a conference room and I'm now meeting with like 7 people. I'm like, "Hey folks, how's it going?"
Mhm.
Because again, I don't know anybody in this room, but if the minute somebody hears me using gender inclusive language, then they're like, oh, okay, this is a safe place. Like, I do feel welcomed here. I do
Mhm.
feel like I'm being recognized. And I feel like that's something that is completely almost always overlooked. Of just, it's not just so much about just being there to receive the information, but making sure that people feel welcome to tell these things. And
Mhm.
that's actually one of the points that Jamie included in their post of basically like, the fears of rejection, because who doesn't fear rejection more than a bunch of neurodivergent people, and getting rejected in those types of way, like feeling like I can't talk about my partner, my spouse at work. Like that's a whole layer to it. Will me having a picture of my engagement photo on my desk, will that cause a problem?
Mhm.
Like there's just so many of these like tiny layers that are basically like weaved into being queer, being in a workplace environment, but then also having to deal with like my brain chemistry constantly being out of whack. It's just like the whole concept is just like, man, the idea of being rejected just makes me want to like just stay in the closet even longer. And I think that's part of what kept me in the closet for so long, is that I was so afraid of like my family not being accepting. Like I come from a huge Irish family, so like I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna work. Like I just won't talk about it, because if I don't talk about it and I just start showing up with a girl to all these events, they'll put two and two together, and I won't have to explain anything. And like my family's always been like super great about it, but then it was also like I went to a Catholic high school, I went to a Catholic university. Talk about two places where being queer and or being neurodivergent, not really the most accepting, welcoming places to be. And then you start growing this like internalized homophobia of just
Mhm.
like, I gotta just shove this shit down as so far down that it'll just never come up, and I'll just basically be able to ignore it for as long as possible, which I personally think that is so ADHD of just like, let me just avoid this thing that might cause problems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it a pile of laundry, or is it your gender identity and
I
sexual
mean,
preferences?
I mean,
Is it old
basically,
male?
is it boomer in the
MAIL,
workplace?
not.
You know,
Yes. MAIL. That a male person, male carrier has brought to my house. I do think like work is especially tricky. Family, you can kind of get away with seeing your family occasionally. Work,
Mm.
it's like I have to not only see these people regularly, I have to talk to these people regularly. I have to problem solve with these people regularly. I also need there to be mutual trust so that I'm entrusted to take care of things. I can delegate things. So I think work, I know like I have talked to my team of people about ADHD. And they know about the podcast, and it's something we like joke about a lot because I'm not the only one with it. So it's like a running joke. Like one of us will be like, "Hey, can you make sure you send me an email because ADHD," and we'll kind of laugh about it. But it's definitely a safe space within our team. And then outside of the team, it's like I don't think other people would. I don't want to plant the seeds of mistrust, thinking I'm not going to be able to handle something or take care of something, or it's going to make somebody uncomfortable. I think I know personally I tend to be the person that when off color comments are made, um generally I think people don't make them in front of me.
Except
But
for
I can
that
relate.
time.
I can relate to that. People stop making inappropriate comments in front of me because I'll make some type of sound effect and or just immediate impulsive response like, oof, you really
yeah,
just
yeah.
said that? Like,
I've
oof,
literally gone like, ooh, I don't
yeah.
really know if that's something we want to be saying out loud. So I do think
Yeah.
people probably tend to be more careful in the language they choose in front of me, which I am fine with. If that's what it takes for you to like think twice, because the whole lesson here is like if you have to think twice about it, just don't. Like if
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anything sets off a bell in your head where you're like, "Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
just don't."
Yeah.
But it's definitely like a full avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring it up to people, don't talk about it, except
And
for like
so
my
like,
little safe space within my team.
yeah, so like some of my coworkers knew that I was dating girl, prior to getting engaged, like that I was in a queer relationship because again, it's a nuanced thing. Like if I don't think that you're going to get it, I'm probably not going to tell you in the first place. But then so there are moments where like I'd have to go to like a senior center, right? I'm in a men's button up shirt, skinny pants, like probably a pair of Vans. The amount of little ladies that would tell me about their cute grandson, right? And I'm just
Never
like,
fails.
and I would just be like,
I mean, such a sweet suggestion, though. Like,
oh,
very sweet.
adorable,
And
but
definitely
like,
the most busted looking grandsons,
oh,
Oh,
well, I
without
mean,
a
some of
doubt.
them were cute. Like they'd had photos on their phone, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, oh, that'd be a cute kid
yeah.
for my sister. Like, I don't need
Um,
dating help, but like finding a good,
don't trust those sons. Okay, they
I
probably have
yeah,
a drug
like
problem, or
I mean,
Or
yeah,
are also gay and not looking to be
like
set up by
oh,
grandma.
that's the plot
likely,
twist. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
grandma, can you we've talked about this. Can you not?
Or they were on Next and they have that crazy frog HPV, and
And so it's like moments like that where it's just like, oh, I'm way too busy with work and school right now, because
Mm.
like they'd know like we'd gotten to like know each other after like a handful of months, right? And they'd be like, oh, like how's school going, how's work, and are you seeing anyone? And I'm like, ha ha ha, I don't have time to date, don't be silly, I'm
I'm
way too
so
busy.
busy.
I'm way too independent to be tied down right now, even though like as a Sagittarius, I am very like monogamous in that sense where like that's like my one Sagittarius trait that I like just can't get behind. I'm like, I don't know who says that, because all the Sagittariuses that I know are so clingy and so just like one person kind of deal that I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know who started this rumor, but it's definitely wrong. Like,
Right. Like
definitely
I
wrong.
enjoy doing things. Like I don't want somebody to tell me my schedule, but like I just also only want to have plans with one somebody.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's just a constant hiding and masking and having to put up this charade of, I'm totally following this heteronormative agenda that has just been pushed on me for my entire existence. And here I am in my mid 20s living my best queer life, but yet still struggling to find that workplace life balance, in a sense of like, how can I fully be fulfilled if I'm not living my best out life? And I feel like that's the other thing that I feel like always gets jumbled into like a lot of like the pride inspirational quotes, where it's just like, if if your safety is at risk or you don't feel safe, you are not obligated to explain your existence to anybody. Your existence on this planet is enough evidence for you to be here. And I feel like that's the other thing that also gets like really mixed in, because like not every workplace is inviting, not every family's welcoming. Like I was on a date in New York City when I was like first coming out, and New York City, right? I'm literally in Midtown and I'm on a date. I go to kiss the girl that I'm on the date with, and I swear to God, this guy came this close to us. Like if this is my me standing on this New York City sidewalk, this guy got like way too close. Like literally we're talking like within 2 feet of us. And he just started screaming these absurd homophobic things to us. And I'm like, bruh, you're lucky I'm on a date, because if I saw you doing this to somebody else, I definitely would have shoved you onto the ground and like kicked some dirt into your eyeballs. Because like, who do you think you are on this like moral high ground that you can just approach somebody and be that aggressive and invade personal space just because you feel some type of way and because you're upset about people existing? Yeah, exactly, Garrett. Your face was my face. Like,
It's
It's
just such a male
yeah.
entitlement too to just invade
mhm.
somebody's space like that, let alone all the aggression that goes with it. But
But
like,
also to invade such an intimate moment.
And then there are other things, other crazy things that just happened, where I was out at a bar with this girl that I was dating with some of my work coworkers, right? People that I thought were inclusive people, in a sense of, okay, I can bring my girlfriend at, my ex-girlfriend now, but girlfriend at the time, out to, staff bar night. We'll go out, we'll have a fun time. So I'm at this bar, and some random guy sitting down the bar sees me and my girlfriend, starts trying to talk to us. Then I'm outside. I was smoking a cigarette. He comes outside. Oh, is that you? And is that your girlfriend? Yes, that's my girlfriend. Oh, well, you girls should come home with me, and I'll show you a good. Yeah, yeah. You can only imagine where this whole conversation was going.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, I'm good. Been there, done that, got the postcards. Glad I found a detour route. Like, I'm good, guy. Like, it's fine. I go finish my cigarette, go back inside. He then comes over to us again, and he touched my girlfriend's arm, like her forearm. I swear to God, I grabbed this kid by the collar of his shirt so quickly and like shoved him across the bar. And I was like, listen, you don't touch other people. My hands are on you right now because you're touching my girlfriend, and I have a fucking problem with that. So learn to keep your hands to yourself, or we're going to have a problem. Did anybody of my coworkers step in other than to physically remove me from this guy? No. Was there a girl sitting at the bar defending this random stranger on how he was just flirting and having a good
ew,
time? And I was like, not when he's disrespected me and my girlfriend multiple times. Like, no, no.
ew.
Also,
And
like,
I
what a
just,
Chad thing to do of being like, oh, lesbians only exist for, three-way fun from
yeah,
the guy
yeah.
who probably wouldn't know a clitoris if it lived on his nose. let alone like
Lived.
what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
Like,
it's moments like that where it's just like, man, these like it's not even like it's not I don't even know if I'd describe it as like a microaggression because it happens so
That's
quickly
a
and so
macroaggression.
well, it's
yeah, like and
I
then like I became the bad guy cuz I put
mm,
my hands on him. Again, impulsive thinking, not realizing, oh, did he have a weapon? Did he have got
yeah.
other friends at the bar? I'm not thinking about those things. I just went in full blown like defense mode of just like,
Mm,
I'm going to remove this guy from my immediate area or I will have to physically harm him. Like, you
yeah.
can't just invade people's bubbles and then be pissed off when they're like, why are you being an asshole? Or like,
Mhm.
get all defensive because you're acting a certain type of way. And so it's things like that that just make queer people want to only go to gay bars where they feel safe or like not always go to work functions because the people that are at these work functions don't know how to be an ally in those moments because like any of my gay friends were there, any of like my lifetime friends would have been right behind me ready to fucking lay this guy out,
Mhm.
but people that I thought were my friends that I worked with were just like, I don't know why you got so mad. He didn't even do anything.
Or even to
It
like
isn't.
be in a group and have somebody follow you outside when you go out for a cigarette is wild that nobody was like, I'm going to go out with her because I don't know who this man is that just followed her outside.
Yeah. Yeah, that is uns like yeah, yeah. That's don't let your friends do that. Like at
Yeah,
the very
yeah,
least, like
Yeah.
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah,
is
and like even on like a coworker based level, like if somebody from your group is then going to go off briefly, send them with a teammate. Like don't go off and just let your person just go off and just, oh, they'll be fine. Sure, they
totally.
might be fine, but they also might not be fine. And like,
Yeah.
I'm not really, like that dude was like maybe like a couple of inches shorter than me. Like, I didn't really see him as a threat. I went to school in New York City. Like, a guy like this that I'm just encountering randomly at the bar, I'm not really too worried about him. But at the same time, I also wasn't thinking about, did he have a weapon? Did he have friends? Like, all the other normal scenarios that I would think at, like, when I'm walking through like a parking garage or something, all those other things that you're supposed to be alert of go right out the window once I'm feeling immediately threatened. Like all of
Mhm.
Mhm.
those reasonable thought processes are just gone because I got to just do what I got to do to protect myself, and whatever else happens we'll figure it out. And I feel like that's another big part of being queer and neurodivergent is that you never know which impulses are the right ones to act on because I might just be defending myself, but that probably would be seen as like impulsive because I didn't really think about all the consequences that could have come after that. And I feel like that's another whole layer of the whole concept in general of
And that kind of
having
like
two
that
worlds exist.
right. And the justice sensitivity layover too. Like
Mhm.
there was one morning I was walking into work and got catcalled by a guy on a bus stop. And I go into work early. It's like 7 something in the morning and I'm by myself and there's nobody else around. And I just got, it was like a 0 to 60. Like I just got so angry. I turned, I was like, fuck you. And flipped the guy off. And then I walked into work and I was like, I am by myself. Like, yes, people know what time I'm supposed to be to work, but like, that's probably something that wasn't the safest move that I've made. But I was so angry. So it was like this really bad combination of like an impulsive
Yeah.
reaction and that like justice sensitivity where it was like, that's the wrong, it is 20, I don't know at the time, 2019. It's 2019. Like, we're not catcalling anymore. Get your shit together. And was like, maybe that
Yeah.
wasn't the best move.
Yeah, and I feel like I do that so many other times in life where like I'm already thinking, like I'm not thinking about how I'm already acting. I came across this good article, I think it was like a Medium article, and somebody was writing um basically on how they were always perceived as like the loud gay person in the office, not recognizing that they also have ADHD. So even though like a lot of like
Oh God.
the like the what's the word I'm looking for? All of like the impulsive things are just being like super loud and like somewhat labeled like obnoxious.
Not me
That's
and Garrett getting yelled at for that at work,
I mean,
no.
yeah, yeah.
Never once in my life.
And so it's one of those things
And
where
then getting
people
mad that
just
we got yelled at for
yeah,
it.
yeah. And
Never
so
once.
yeah, and so what people thought was him just being like a really annoying, like being seen as like the really annoying gay guy. It was actually his ADHD that made him super loud and like I consider like outgoing and almost like just like really just constantly having the gears going.
Mhm.
It's because this kid had ADHD and it's not just because he's like a loud gay kid. Like that's not what it was. You guys completely missed the fact that he was ADHD or I shouldn't say he because I don't remember their pronouns. But so they didn't acknowledge the fact that this person had ADHD and that person didn't feel comfortable enough to talk about their ADHD because they were already seen as like the loud, gay, obnoxious one, which again
Oh.
then just another layer of the internalized homophobia where like I can't have all of my gears spinning at the same time, otherwise I'm seen in a negative portrayal of like the loud obnoxious gay when really it's just my ADHD and I just happen to be gay on top of that.
And
Yeah.
how much does this like caricature that they have of me lend itself to being vulnerable and telling people like, hey, like this is something that I deal with, something that I have a hard time with. Like I definitely go around it and I'll say, if we could do it this way, that'll work a lot better for me, instead of being like, my brain will refuse to do that, so can we try it? I just have to like offer an alternative and kind of go around it,
Yeah.
around the block to get next door, because sometimes that's the only way I think to get people to work with you without being dismissive
Mhm.
Mhm.
of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why it's always been easier for me to talk about my ADHD because, like, I really don't care if you think that it exists or whether or not you think my medication is working or just like any of these other negative thoughts that you could have about my ADHD. Because, like, let's be real, I've already had those thoughts. I've already felt bad enough about myself
Joke's on
that,
you,
like,
I'm meaner to me.
yeah, exactly, though. Like, that is part of
You
it
think
where
you
it's
can
just
bully
like,
me?
you should have heard the comments my ninth grade English teacher wrote on my report card. Like, joke's on you. Cause
It's that
like,
meme of Ben Stiller in Dodgeball where he's like, "Oh, you think I know that you know that we know that I know you know?" Like,
Yes.
like
yeah. And so it's kind of at the point where like I'm so
yeah.
secure in talking about that because it is my everyday life. Like I wish there was just like a little tiny switch in my brain that I could just be like normal, and just be able to act appropriate at all times and like know to pick up on social cues and like all of these other things. My brain just doesn't work like that. And it's taken a lot of work and a lot of therapy for me to be like, I'm not gonna put myself in triggering moments because I did the work. I've been to therapy. I did all of the steps that I needed to like be like, yeah, I am an ADHD adult. Like, what of it? I have an extremely high executive functioning score. Do I have an extremely low frustration level? Yes. Like oh yeah, I'm on very opposite ends here. So like my problem solving, top notch. The feelings I have when I can't figure out the problem, it explains why I used to punch holes in sheetrocks growing up because I couldn't get those feelings out in a productive way that
Mm.
I would just resort to straight up frustration and anger and then that's when a hole gets punched in a wall. And I didn't know these things until I got my evaluation. I was in therapy and I did all of the work to be like, "Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, the depression that I was feeling as like a preteen, oh, it's actually linked to the fact that you're neurodivergent and you were going through puberty, and all of these things changed throughout your entire body that you had no idea about. And like shout out to your that episode that you guys did, because I never put those two and two together. Like, oh, I was sad and depressed and, miserable when I was a teenager. It wasn't because I wasn't trying hard enough or that I wasn't doing enough or being enough. It was just my body's brain chemistry just going off the wire, basically. And there was nothing I could have really done to prevent that, let alone like stop what was happening, essentially.
Mhm.
And it's like also like in that time where it was just like, I graduated high school in 2010, like up until high school and like beginning of undergrad, like one of the worst words that somebody could say to me would literally be to call me a dyke, like to my face. And like that's something, like being called gay as a slur was something that, Hillary Duff worked very hard to get people to stop doing that. But it's those moments like that where again like my impulsiveness would come out. Like I got into so many fistfights when I was in middle school because these kids would call me like a dyke or call me gay, and I'd instantly just fly off the handle because like I just couldn't handle that somebody was thinking that about me, that was the worst thing that somebody could say about me. But then also I wasn't even thinking about what if it's actually true.
Mm.
And I feel like that's also where like a lot of like my internalized homophobia came from, was growing up. That was like the worst thing that you could call somebody.
Mhm.
And I was definitely the kid that was getting in trouble because the second some kid was mouthing off to me, he'd catch these hands. Like I couldn't stop myself. It was just okay, I'm now going to try to beat you up because
And it's so
you're
hard.
using this language and I don't know how to control myself. But this was
Yeah.
also like pre-diagnosis where like my impulsive and lack of self-control wasn't even a thing we were questioning, because I don't know why, but at the same time it was because I did something wrong and it was never about what the kids said.
Right.
And like I feel like that's also what just always pissed me off growing up, because I wasn't, how I defend myself isn't just to verbally harass you back. I'm going to literally make you shut up because that's the only way I know how to make it stop.
Um, yeah, I more subscribe to the, say something truthful but devastating club,
She
which I
That's
got
certainly
me
does.
now. That's
real
me current. Like, do you
real
need a
good
hug?
at it in middle school. I was really good at just like cutting somebody to their quick. But I think also, in middle school, your world is so small. So, yeah, at the time, I mean, not that it's any better now for somebody to call you gay and as a slur or in a derogatory way, but it's a lot easier, as you grow up and as you get through that part of your life to see that like, this is just this person. Probably, first of all, they probably won't think about this ever again, the person who's saying this, but also like this moment doesn't define you, even though it feels like it does. And so it's just so hard though when you're little and you're full of big emotions, especially going through puberty, when like your emotions and your brain like is too big for your body, like, and everything's just trying to balance out. It's really hard to keep that perspective um in the moment. And as we've talked about before, it's very easy for people with ADHD to get misdiagnosed. It's usually people of color, but to get misdiagnosed with a conduct disorder rather than to be misdiagnosed with ADHD, because you would fly off the handle and fight with somebody. And well, that's a behavioral issue. That's not a focus issue. That's not a school issue. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, well, they're just, then I know you've said it before, Garrett, but it's like that's how that kid ends up being called a bad kid, not just
Mhm.
a kid with like
I
a
was a
learning
bad kid.
disability.
Oh no, I was a bad kid. I feel like I got labeled as like a bad kid like once in every school that I went to, and it kind of just stuck with me the entire time. But yet nobody put two and two together to like maybe like re-diagnose me, to, I don't know, look into why I'm not getting services. Like, I'm a full believer that I basically just fell through the cracks. Like, there was just some disconnect that like my parents didn't know how to handle it because they're also immigrants. So like there's that layer where like my parents probably didn't fully understand how to resolve it. But then
Mm,
also like there was no school intervention at any point. I, at least not that I
mhm.
remember, in like later years, like middle school through high school. And it's one of those things where like kids like that just end up falling through the cracks, and it's because they don't want to show, like, not literally show up, but they don't want to do the work because you're just a boring teacher. Like, I had a horrible ninth grade English teacher who wrote in like horrific like script, like Catholic school teacher script, but then would photocopy. She would then photocopy her own handwriting and hand those out as the test papers. And I'm
Yes.
like, I can't read this.
That's
And
ridiculous.
she took that as me being like disrespectful and a bad kid. But I'm just like, I just don't know what you're writing, so I can't read it. Or like I'm taking a New York State Regents exam, again sitting by the window because we're in alphabetical order. I've also just been, so you're so conditioned at a point where like you have to ask permission for everything. Like you can't
Mhm.
just stand up and do anything. So I asked, "Hey, can I just close the blinds? Not to move my seat, nothing crazy. Can I just close the blinds? I don't want to be able to see outside while I'm taking this test." You should be able to control yourself and not look out the
Well,
window.
yeah, I should, but here we are.
I
Like,
literally
fuck.
got yelled at in like 4th grade because I noticed it was snowing outside in October and pointed it out. But she like barked at me, and I'm like, I'm 9 years old and it's snowing. Like, I'm allowed to be excited
Also,
about that.
snow is gorgeous and it's always pretty when it happens. Like,
Yeah,
Yes.
just enjoy the fucking snow. God damn. We live in a place with seasons for who knows how long.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like,
Literally though, literally.
god damn. All right, so this is running long, so we're going to cut it here, but we will be back next week with more of this conversation with Sarah and the queer slash neurodivergent experience. In the meantime, though, we are going to again remind you to please vote for us starting July 1st. Nominate us for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The link to do that will be in the show notes for this episode. It'll also be all over our Instagram page, and I'll try to remember, we'll see, to put a link to that on our website. But in the meantime, make sure you're following us on Instagram at the bar is ankle high. If you want any merch, you can go to bit.ly/ankle high merch. Do you want to scream?
Billy
There you go.
never gets old.
And do we have anything else? Am I forgetting something? Oh, give us 5-star reviews because we're
Oh, yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
I think that's it.
I don't have my list in front of me.
Join our Patreon
Oh yeah.
at patreon.com/barsankle-high.
Yes, because starting our first episode in August on August 3rd, Anklets and Limbo Champions will both be getting ad-free episodes because we're pretty sure that we won't be able to do Dysfunction Junction episodes with a new baby Blueberry around. So if while Garrett's on maternity leave, at least, we'll be expanding the ad-free episodes. So make sure you sign up if you hate hearing ads. And I think that's it.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the meantime, I don't know. How would you end it, Sarah?
I guess just an overall Pride Month message is that being an ally is a verb. If you're not helping, chances are somebody around you's hurting. So just keep that in mind as we progress through Pride Month and the rest of the year, because after Pride comes Wrath. So brace yourselves for that. And that's basically it. And never forget, the bar's ankle high.
Bye.